Well, with me now is the Labour MP Tristram Hunt, Shadow Secretary of State for Education. Mr Gove clearly feels he is battling the blob, these forces who are against revolution and reform. Are you battling them with him, or are you part of the blob?
I think Michael Gove's language is unfortunate. You look at the best performing education systems around the world and they're working together with teachers.
So it doesn't need any reform?
Yes, no, you need reform, but what you need is reform in the classroom. What we think in the Labour Party, the best way to improve outcomes, raise standards, is to focus on teacher quality, to focus on the professional development of teachers.
You agree with the need for reform? So if it's not the blob fighting reform, what's your word for it?
What you want to do is to work with the teaching profession. You want to work with the trade unions. You want to work with teachers in the classroom to say, look, how do we get you to become better teachers? How do we get the learning outcomes to be even smarter, even better? And I think this language of sort of relentless structural reform, almost relentless Maoist revolution, doesn't actually produce the results we want to see in terms of what we should be focused on, which is school quality.
You then become enthralled to the teachers. You don't advocate any major change because they may say no to it. And then where does that leave you? That leaves you back where we were.
Well, Jackie, if you go and talk to the education minister in Finland or Hong Kong or Shanghai, are they at war with the teaching profession? No. What they're doing is saying, all right, how can we get you better? How can we work on maths? How can we work on literacy? How can we get sure we've got the right leaders in schools?
It's a difference of approach, but really everything he said today, did you listen to Michael Gove's speech and think, I can't argue with any of that? State schools as good as private schools. What's to disagree with?
It's an absolutely essential difference of approach, which is focused on concrete policies. If you just let me finish one sentence, Jackie, rather than rhetoric. Under this government, we've had a startling rise in the number of unqualified teachers in the classroom. Your viewers will be shocked to know that the government have changed rules to allow people who are not qualified to teach to be in the classroom. So if we want to raise standards, we have to have
made your point about unqualified teachers. I understand that is a difference between you and Mr. Gove.
It is a shocking situation.
If you look at some of the best performing independent schools, Brighton College has a number, quite a handful, I think 39 unqualified teachers. It has some of the best results in the country. Where is your evidence that unqualified teachers means poor results?
Our evidence is right around the world that the best performing school systems have the most qualified teachers in them. Look, it absolutely makes sense that you want your kids at school to be taught by qualified teachers. And it doesn't just begin with that. It's about professional development. It's about being the best you can be.
Brighton College, 96% A and A stars at GCSEs.
Yeah, I mean, look, the independent sector can do as it will. You'll find that over 90% of teachers in the independent sector have qualified teacher status. What I'm focused on as the incoming Education Secretary is making sure that teachers in our state system are as motivated, passionate and focused as possible and have the professional development.
Standards are rising.
Absolutely.
And Mr Gove says standards are rising because of the changes he's made. So he talked today about a longer school day. You can't argue with that. Labour talked about that in 2012.
Well, in the past, Michael said that his reforms would only really see results in 2015. So the rising standards we're seeing today are often as a result of the Labour approach to education. And here's another difference.
So you're in agreement?
What Michael's concerned about is independent schools. What we're concerned about in the Labour Party is interdependency, because what you saw with rising results in London, thanks to the London Challenge, the Labour Party's policy, was schools working together in partnership, challenging each other and raising results.
What people will tell you about Mr Gove is that he has you know what he stands for.
Yeah.
I mean, in a matter of 48 hours recently, you spoke about putting rocket boosters under free schools policy and then talked about it as an ideological, dangerous experiment. I mean, where do you stand?
What we've seen is that Michael Gove stands for unqualified teachers. He talks down the teaching profession with this language of
free
the blob.
That's a really key thing that you need to make clear.
Absolutely, Jackie, if you let me. We're in favour of new schools being set up, but unlike Michael, we'll have qualified teachers in them, they have financial accountability, and we won't have the chaos which your reporters have so very brilliantly described at the Al Medina Free School in
one
Derby,
school out of 174.
Which Channel 4 News has exposed time and again for the dangers exposed to pupils by having unqualified teachers in the classroom.
You're talking about free schools with less freedom. You're talking about free schools that aren't free schools?
Look, we've got a school places crisis coming up. We need to build new schools. We want innovation. I've been to the London Academy of Excellence, and it's a really exciting project. But look, the real challenge is not in London. The real challenge is in places like in Ryde, in the Isle of Wight. It's in Lincolnshire. It's in Norfolk. It's easy to go to London and say it's all doing well here. Actually, the challenge is in the rest of the country. And the Labour Party has an answer to that by having well-motivated, passionate teachers in the classroom.